When it comes to multiplayer experiences, it's hard to find more fun games than those found in the various Mario Sports franchises. Over the years, these titles have provided me and so many others with countless hours of entertainment, which is why it's such a shame to see the state that many of these series are now in. I don't think it's a hot take to say that the glory days of Mario Sports games have long since passed, and unfortunately, there is little reason to believe that that's likely to change anytime soon. As hard as it is to believe, it's been 20 years since we received quality games like Mario Superstar Baseball, and it's why I want to go back and revisit the good games in these franchises. I want to highlight the period when these series were universally beloved, and each game was crafted with a ton of care that matched the quality you would expect to find in a mainline Mario title. Take, for example, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour for the Nintendo GameCube, which is one of the most underrated Mario titles ever released. This title is so polished and well done that even as someone who has never played more than a few rounds of mini golf in his life, I find myself coming back to it year after year when I'm looking for a fun, relaxing game to unwind with. It has a phenomenal soundtrack, a ton of charm, an abundance of content, and addictive, intuitive controls that make it easy to pick up and play. I understand that many find the game of golf boring and likely don't find it appealing even with Mario characters attached to it, but man are they missing out. Toadstool Tour is a game that I would recommend to anyone who is looking for an enjoyable golf or Mario game, as I'm certain they won't be disappointed. The only problem is that there is currently no way for fans to go back and give it a try without the use of an emulator, because Nintendo has not provided a method to play this game on current generation hardware. This has been the case for a vast majority of Mario Sports games as well, as Mario Superstar Baseball, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, and so many others are stuck on the consoles they released on. These were the games that cultivated much of the goodwill that these franchises still benefit from, and yet only those who had the chance to play them when they came out will have had the opportunity to enjoy them. There is hope now that Super Mario Strikers and GameCube games have come to Nintendo Switch Online, but with how slowly Nintendo rolls out content, there's no telling how long it could take for these games to appear. It could be years before we see these classic titles make their way to the Nintendo Switch 2, which sucks because they deserve to be on the service already. So many new generations are missing out on the incredible experiences found in these older Mario Sports games, instead being subjected to disappointing recent releases on the Switch like Mario Golf Super Rush and Mario Strikers Battle League. It's truly a shame that these mediocre titles are currently representing their respective franchises, but in reality, Mario Sports have been in a bad place for well over a decade. Nearly every metric shows the decline these series have been on, and though they can contain small sample sizes at times, a quick look at any online aggregator will show you that fans and critics alike are in agreement that Mario Sports aren't what they used to be. Whether it's because they released in an unfinished bare-bones state, failed to innovate or stand out in any significant way, or simply didn't capture the spirit of past titles, Mario Sports have struggled to succeed the last decade for one reason or another. And it's to the point that I imagine younger people may not know that there was a time when Mario Sports were not only released in a completely finished state, but they were praised and celebrated for their quality. That's why today, just after Mario Superstar Baseball's 20th anniversary, I want to go back and highlight the period of time that I consider to be the golden age of Mario Sports. It was an era defined by numerous successful releases, both critically and commercially, that massively expanded the popularity of Mario Sports and created the standard that all future titles would be held to. This 7-year stretch of time that lasted from 1999 to 2005 introduced new series, refined existing concepts, and featured a ton of experimentation to bring in new fans and please returning ones. It was an age of prosperity for Mario Sports that hadn't been seen before and hasn't been seen since, and I want to walk through what made this period so special and why Nintendo has failed to replicate its success. As always, be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I hope you enjoy this look at the golden age of Mario Sports. Mario as a character has had his roots in the sporting world since 1984 with the releases of tennis and golf for the NES, but it wasn't until the late 1990s that Mario Sports would take the shape that we know today. Prior to the release of Mario Golf on the Nintendo 64, most Mario Sports games were fundamentally basic sports titles that happened to feature Mario and sometimes Luigi as playable characters. However, when Mario Golf was released over 25 years ago in the summer of 1999, that all changed as the game of golf was given a complete Mario makeover. Not only was Mario's name put front and center in the game's title for the first time, but the gameplay started to feature elements that made the games feel like an extension of the Mario universe. Now every course had some level of Mario theming to it, and for the first time you were given the chance to golf as a variety of popular characters from the Mushroom Kingdom, such as Donkey Kong, Yoshi, and Peach. These are elements of modern Mario sports titles that we now take for granted, but Mario Golf was the first sports title to incorporate them into its gameplay. In fact, many of the tropes we now associate with Mario Sports started here, and Mario Golf is largely responsible for creating the format that we still know to this day. From the cute opening cinematic upon boot, to the large variety of modes to choose from, to the level of detail and care put into the game's various animations, Mario Golf's influence can be seen all over the larger Mario Sports franchise. Along with Mario Party and Mario Kart 64, it played a big role in expanding Mario as a brand by firmly establishing that Mario games weren't just limited to platformers anymore. Its impact really can't be overstated, and the nearly 24 Mario sports titles that have released since Mario Golf can largely attribute their success to the groundwork that this N64 classic laid for them. Even if you have never held a golf club in your life, it's still easy to pick up and play Mario Golf, which is what makes it so inviting and fun. The core gameplay is very satisfying thanks to its 3-click system that requires you to time your inputs to determine the power and accuracy of each of your swings. It's a simple system, but one that remains challenging to consistently nail, which is why each stroke feels so important. One botched swing can change the entire trajectory of a hole or even a round, and it creates a level of tension within each attempt that keeps the game engaging from hole 1 to hole 18. What made this title an instant classic, though, is the level of depth that can be found beyond its simple swinging mechanics, as there are many different factors that you will have to account for as you play. For each shot, you'll have to factor in the speed and direction of the wind, the type of surface you're hitting the ball to and from, and what part of the ball you'd like to hit as well. On top of that, you'll have to consider the topography of the course, what club is appropriate for each situation, and when and where it's best to risk using your limited number of power shots. All these elements create a big learning curve that can take a while to master, but that sense of growth is what makes this title so rewarding to return to whether you've only played a few holes or you've been playing for 25 plus years. What made Mario Golf a huge success beyond its stellar golf gameplay and now standard features like a full cast of Mario characters was how it felt like it had a personality of its own. Mario Golf is not just a golf game with Mario characters slapped over it, nor is it a half-baked minigame either. Instead, it is something completely distinct, as there is an undeniable atmosphere in Mario Golf 64 that has kept fans loyal to it. There is a wholesome vibe that radiates through this game, which enhances and highlights positive aspects like how stunning the courses can be at times despite the blocky, polygonal graphics of the N64. Everything in this title feels laid back and cozy, from its menus to its music, and it gives the game a clear identity that's instantly recognizable. There are so many little details that help it stand out and make it truly feel like a Mario game, like how most characters' balls receive an added special effect when hit at max power and accuracy. While not a huge deal, seeing lightning erupt from Wario's power shot makes it feel more powerful and is the type of extra touch that helps set Mario Golf apart from the hundreds of other golf games out there. The same could be said of the post-hole animations, as even though they don't affect the gameplay, and even though you will be skipping them a vast majority of the time, they are such a welcome addition because of how charming they are. These animations make you feel even better when playing well, and help lighten the mood when playing poorly, and contribute to why Mario Golf stands out and feels so unique even 25 plus years later. Likewise, Mario Golf's counterpart for the Game Boy Color, which released later in 1999, stood out in its own way by offering a unique RPG experience for a sports game. Players would gain experience points and improve their skills as they journeyed to defeat each club champion in hopes of challenging the Golf Master Mario. While not as popular or celebrated as its N64 predecessor, for a golf game on the go in 1999, Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color truly couldn't be beat. It has a level of polish to it that feels rare for the Game Boy Color, which prevents it from feeling like a cheap handheld tie-in. Not only was it the first Mario sports game to incorporate RPG elements into its gameplay, it also had connectivity with the N64 Mario Golf via the Game Boy Link cable, which was awesome because you could transfer over your player characters to use in that game as well. Because of the RPG leveling system, these characters could become absolutely broken, allowing you to drive the ball much further than any of the standard Mario characters ever could, which felt like a neat reward for owning both versions of the game. With so many features, including 2 terrific soundtracks, the pair of Mario Golf games served as the catalyst for decades of Mario sports titles that would model themselves along the template they created. Their addictive pick-up-and-play gameplay, stellar polish and presentation, and loads of content served as a successful formula that would be refined over the years as Nintendo would go on to publish over 24 Mario sports titles off the back of Mario Golf's success. This is why I consider the starting point of the golden age of Mario sports to coincide with Mario Golf's summer 1999 release, because it's hard to imagine what both the Mario sports and larger Super Mario franchises would look like without it. That said, Camelot and Nintendo were only getting started because the very next year in the summer of 2000, they'd continue their success with the phenomenal Mario Tennis for N64. If Mario Golf was the jab that set things up, then Mario Tennis had to be the right cross that knocked people's expectations out and established Mario Sports as a stalwart Nintendo franchise. Much like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis for the N64 is technically not the first tennis game to feature Mario, but it is undoubtedly the most important for the way it expanded the larger Mario universe. It's well known by now that this is the game where Luigi's own rival character and fan favorite Waluigi made his debut, but it's also responsible for the popularity of Princess Daisy and Birdo, who were both brought back into the fray after large hiatuses from the Mario series. Mario Tennis also featured the first playable instances of many side characters and enemies in the franchise, and baddies like Boo, Paratroopa, and Shy Guy are among the lists that got their start as playable characters here. In addition to introducing and reintroducing characters to the Mario universe, this N64 title established many of the pairings that have become staples of the Mario franchise, like Wario and Waluigi, Yoshi and Birdo, and Luigi and Daisy to name a few. Mario Tennis is also responsible for introducing many of the characteristics that a lot of these iconic Mario characters would become known for. While Mario Golf stayed pretty tame when it came to giving its characters personality, Mario Tennis let loose a little, and it results in scenes like Waluigi's victory celebration where he prances around trying to get a rise out of Luigi, and Mario's trophy celebration where Wario steals his newly won prize. It made these endearing characters even more lovable by giving them more concrete personalities, and it added some unique flavor to Mario Tennis that helped set it apart from previous Mario titles. In my eyes, these details are just as important as the gameplay because they helped Mario Tennis establish its own identity apart from Mario Golf. There is a vibe that this game gives off through its music, animations, aesthetic, and cutscenes that's totally its own. While the gameplay is rock solid and extremely fun, it's difficult to remember any one particular match or tournament as serves and volleys blend together over time. But it's easy to remember charming moments like Yoshi helping baby Mario in his trophy celebration, or cool features like the ability to play on character-themed courts that play remixes of classic Mario themes. In fact, on a personal note, some of my most nostalgic memories from Mario Tennis come not from its gameplay, but rather from simply chilling in the records menu listening to the dope hip-hop-like beat that played while I browsed my scores. However, I don't want to downplay how good Mario Tennis's gameplay was, because it is absolutely rock solid with dynamic, easy-to-learn controls and frenetic back-and-forth action. Picking up where Mario Golf left off, this N64 title provides you with so many options for how you want to approach the game of tennis. There are traditional modes where you can play in exhibition matches or participate in tournaments, but the game also includes a bunch of extra modes like Ring Shot and Piranha Challenge to keep things interesting. There's also a great Bowser-themed court that introduces Mario Kart-esque item blocks, which can help you gain an edge on this chaotic court that shifts and turns as you play. And also, like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis has connectivity with a Game Boy Color counterpart of its own that allows you to import even more content, like several exclusive courts and a few upgradable non-Mario characters. What made this particular Game Boy Color tie-in so special compared to Mario Golf's tie-in was the fact that the things that you transferred over to the N64 were now permanent, unlike that game where the transfer was only temporary while everything was connected. This gave the GBC Mario Tennis a ton of value because in addition to being a very fun mobile tennis game with an RPG leveling system and a story, it also enhanced the experience of Mario Tennis on the N64. In my opinion, it was the best use of the N64 transfer pack because it felt like you were gaining so much on both versions of the game that you could also send a few Mario characters to be played on the Game Boy Color as well. What Mario Tennis on GBC lacked in originality compared to Mario Golf, it more than made up for with its utility as a tie-in game, and if you were a kid like I was in the early 2000s, it was a magical experience to own both. Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color would be the final Mario Sports title released for the 5th generation of video game consoles, because less than a year after its launch, Nintendo would unveil both the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube worldwide. But before we dive into the Mario Sports titles of the 6th gen of gaming, I think it's important to highlight that Nintendo had just published 4 separate games in less than a 2-year span, and they were all very good. All but Mario Golf on Game Boy Color sold over 1 million units, while every game received an average rating in the high 80s or above by critics. For comparison, the Nintendo Switch only saw 4 releases across its entire 8-year lifespan, and not a single one of them averaged a rating over a 75 by critics or fans. And while true that their sales numbers are better than the 4 games we've discussed so far, when you consider the insane disparity in the console sales of the Switch versus the N64, the numbers the Switch Mario Sports titles put up become much less impressive. However, to fully understand why modern Mario Sports titles have seen this decline, we need to fast forward to a few years after Mario Tennis's release to examine the games of the Game Boy Advance and GameCube era. While the N64 did a tremendous job of getting things started for Mario Sports, the 6th gen Nintendo consoles took things to the next level, starting with Mario Golf Toadstool Tour in 2003. Even though I can see why some may prefer the coziness of Mario Golf's atmosphere with soothing music and calming animal noises, I think Toadstool Tour is objectively a much better game that improves upon its predecessor in many ways. As I said at the start of this video, this title is polished beyond belief, and charm radiates from every course and mode it offers, as it doubles down on the Mario elements that made its precursor so unique. No better place can this be seen than in the roster of golfers that are available to choose from, because despite Toadstool Tour having the same number of playable characters as its predecessor, the Mario franchise is much better represented here. Gone are the random human characters like Plum and Sunny, and in are new pillars of the franchise like Waluigi and Daisy. Though Baby Mario and Metal Mario got the boot as well, they are replaced by Bowser Jr., Shadow Mario, and Petey Piranha, all of whom made their debut as playable characters here. We also see the return of Koopa and Boo as playable characters, though the most notable inclusion has to be Diddy Kong, who makes his Mario series debut in Toadstool Tour, as prior to this he could only be found in Donkey Kong specific titles. And in addition to all the other returning Mario characters, we still have the ability to import 2 more golfers, as Toadstool Tour can be linked with Mario Golf Advance Tour on the GBA. Aside from its great roster, the introduction of many new gimmicks not present in the N64 version show how Toadstool Tour strives to incorporate Mario theming into its gameplay as often as it can. My personal favorite addition is the inclusion of Mario's trademark warp pipes that can be utilized to skip sections of the course you're on for an easy birdie or eagle. Nothing feels as good as nailing a shot right through one and finding yourself in a great position on the other side, and it helps sell the idea that you're really golfing in the Mushroom Kingdom. What sells it even further is the fact that enemies such as Bob-ombs, Piranha Plants, and Chain Chomps now serve as course hazards, including King Bob-omb himself, who you can find on Hole 8 of the Peach's Castle Ground tournament. It's really exciting to try and hit tough shots under looming thwomps or around floating boos, and along with a slew of exclusive terrains like fast fairways or the flower gardens that spit out Pikmin when your ball is hit into it, they help to separate Toadstool Tour from every other golf title. Whereas Camelot felt somewhat conservative when blending Mario elements into a golf experience in Mario Golf 64, here it feels like they took the gloves off and allowed Toadstool Tour to be a full celebration of Mario. They didn't wait until the final course to turn the Mario dial to 11, and more so than any prior Mario Sports game, Toadstool Tour really leaned into its Mario roots. Its identity was formed from its willingness to allow its courses and characters to be expressive and proudly display their personalities, and it's what makes it such a memorable game. To this day, there isn't anything that gives me as much joy in a Mario Sports title as being able to cheer on or taunt my opponent in multiplayer because of how funny some of the lines these characters say actually are. It makes it obvious to me that the only reason this game isn't more beloved and discussed is because it's based around golf and not another more popular sport, as there is no way people wouldn't have fallen in love with this title knowing they could, as a poshly characterized Koopa, tell their friend that the shot they were on was rather out of their league. This is without even mentioning all the imaginative animations that play depending on how many strokes above or below par you are, or how each character gets their own special dance on the select screen. Needless to say, there are too many of these details to go over all the noteworthy ones here, but they all contribute to giving Mario Golf Toadstool Tour its distinct personality and feel. Along with its music, which is some of the best in not just Mario Sports but the entire Mario franchise, it makes Toadstool Tour feel like an experience rather than just a game, and it's why fans of this title have poured dozens, if not hundreds of hours into it over the years. But while I give a lot of credit to this for the non-gameplay elements like I did with Mario Golf and Mario Tennis 64, Toadstool Tour definitely deserves a lot of praise for how it developed the foundation that Mario Golf 64 laid for it. Tons of mechanics were either improved or added to make the game of golf even more exciting and easy to pick up and play. For newcomers just breaking in, an auto swing feature was introduced to take away some of the pressure of nailing your timings at the cost of a little accuracy. For more seasoned players, topspin, backspin, and their super versions were added to allow for even more control over where your ball will lie at the end of a drive. For everyone's benefit, the camera was made to be more cooperative, allowing you to view more of each hole in detail and easily read the curvature of the land thanks to Toadstool Tour's grid that displays whether or not a path slopes more clearly. And an adjustable marker was added to the power meter to help you gauge the distance of your next stroke and more accurately hit the ball at the strength you desire, which is particularly useful when attempting to putt. All these new features help to streamline the gameplay and cut down on the time spent doing calculations in your head as you set up your next shot. It helps the pacing of Toadstool Tour immensely and makes it absolutely more approachable than its N64 counterpart. As I mentioned earlier, I understand why fans of Mario Golf 64 might want to stick with that title, but I appreciate that Toadstool Tour didn't actively alienate fans by radically changing the game's core systems like future titles in the series would. Instead, they focused on accessibility and speeding up the gameplay in a more subtle manner that felt like a natural evolution of Mario Golf 64's gameplay, and is why Toadstool Tour excels the way that it does. Now, I know I've spent quite a bit of time laying out what made Mario Golf Toadstool Tour so special, and that's because I believe this was the game that perfected the Mario Sports formula. While arguments can be made for other Mario Sports titles being more fun to play, I don't think a single other release has the level of execution of all the qualities that make a Mario Sports game great as Toadstool Tour does. The characters are expressive and endearing, the gameplay is intricate yet approachable, there's a vast amount of replay value thanks to its large variety of modes and sizable roster, and the music and presentation is top-notch, creating a strong, recognizable identity characterized by its Mario theming and attention to detail. Simply put, it is the total package, and while it may not be my personal favorite Mario Sports game, it raised the bar and expectations for the franchise in a major way. Though Mario Sports may have peaked from a quality standpoint in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, that doesn't mean that the games that released after it didn't manage to capture the same magic that that game produced. Case in point is Mario Golf Advance Tour for the Game Boy Advance, which is an excellent portable golf experience that faithfully recreates the charm of its console brother. While obviously more limited in the amount of content it can contain, the spirit of Toadstool Tour is definitely captured here in Advance Tour. Camelot clearly put a ton of effort into this title, and it shows not just in its gameplay, but in its story mode too, which feels much more fleshed out than its GBC predecessor. It's here where Advance Tour really finds itself, as the characters show a lot more personality than they did in the previous handheld Mario Golf, and have a lot more to say and do. While it still doesn't compare to a traditional RPG, running around the clubhouse and interacting with the world is relaxing and a nice way to break up the numerous rounds of golf. Little details like being able to investigate the lockers of various Mario characters to see what they left behind have always stood out to me and helped to build Advance Tour's warm atmosphere. And it's why, despite not utilizing Mario characters as much as maybe it should have, that the story mode was still a fun time. I know very few people care about a 2D portable golf game from the mid-2000s, and even fewer probably played it, but this title really deserves praise for accomplishing so much on such limited hardware. It had a great soundtrack, fantastic visuals for its time, and up to 16 playable characters when using the GBA link cable to import from Toadstool Tour, which was way more than what was expected for a Game Boy Advance title. It's not perfect, as the putting could use some work, and it certainly isn't as good as either console Mario Golf title we've discussed, but what's important is that it has its own identity. I think this is arguably the most important quality that games like these can have, and it's one of the common threads you'll find throughout the Mario Sports games released during this period of time. The gameplay, no matter how good it is, will only keep you coming back for so long, but if there is something that you can resonate with, whether it's the music, atmosphere, or even the ability to play as a specific character, then you'll always have a reason to return again and again. It's not enough to just slap a new gimmick onto the gameplay and call it a day. These games need to have a soul that goes beyond just the mechanics of the sport and play. This is at the core of why I believe modern Mario sports have failed to connect with fans, because they don't feel like they were crafted with the same love and care that the N64 and GameCube entries received. Instead, they feel like weak attempts to cash in on the nostalgia that those games produce, while missing the elements that made those games beloved in the first place. Take for example Mario Golf Super Rush, which released back in 2021 to a fairly lukewarm, if not negative response. On the surface, Super Rush looks like a great game with a ton of characters and a new innovative gameplay style, but once you spend a little time with it, you feel how lifeless and devoid of personality it is. In a lot of ways, despite being a golf game featuring Mario characters, Super Rush doesn't feel like a Mario Golf game at all, and you can feel the disconnect this entry has from the rest of the series right away. Everything in this game feels lazy and forced, as if the features that made it into the game were only included just so the game could say they had them. Sure, the game has post-hole animations like past titles, but there aren't as many as previous entries had, and they are so short and basic and barely show any emotion at all. Take for example Donkey Kong's double bogey or below animation from Toadstool Tour, where he throws a big ass barrel on the green and starts smashing the ground like a big monkey baby, and compare that to Super Rush, where he just lowers his head slightly and looks like he barely gives a shit that he just forfeited the hole. Or look at Waluigi's eagle animation from Toadstool Tour, where he dances and hits a Michael Jackson pose not once, but twice, and then consider that Super Rush doesn't have animations for eagles, so you're left with his incredibly generic and boring fist bump celebration. Half of the charm and character of past Mario sports games came from these tiny cutscenes, and it's criminal that you can no longer hear Luigi say birdie as he hits a dance move and pose after scoring 1 under par. This is to say nothing of Super Rush's gameplay, which also misses the mark by departing from the beloved 3-click system the series had become known for. While I don't blame them for trying to do something new, the new system isn't anywhere near as gratifying to use as what came before it. Camelot's focus was clearly on speed golf, which is a fun alternative way to play, but the standard golf gameplay feels worse than it did in previous titles because it doesn't feel as polished or precise. Unfortunately, speed golf loses its novelty fairly quickly, which then leaves you with a core golf experience that feels noticeably worse than it did in previous titles. Ultimately, the gameplay does move a bit faster even in standard modes, but precision was sacrificed for simplicity, and for what? So they could promote the game as a high-energy multiplayer experience? Well, you'd think if that was their priority, then more than 2 players could play on a single console, but they can't. Instead, the developers took away mechanics that rewarded the player for their skill to promote a new gimmick, which, while fun at times, is not worth compromising the core gameplay for. Rather than understanding what made the N64 and GameCube Mario sports games so appealing, like the ability to play with 4 friends on one console, Super Rush assumes that change and a shiny new gimmick means progress when that isn't always the case. What's disappointing is that Camelot should have already known this too, as another game they made back in 2004 was hurt by a similar design philosophy. Mario Power Tennis, the sequel to Mario Tennis 64, also introduced a new gimmick that didn't have quite the positive impact that the developers hoped it would. It is still a very good entry to the Mario Sports franchise, mainly thanks to its other endearing qualities, but the introduction of offensive and defensive power shots radically changed the gameplay of its predecessor in a way that wasn't universally loved. Suddenly, volleys were constantly being interrupted by short power shot cutscenes, which disrupted the gameplay flow and alienated many fans of Mario Tennis 64's more straightforward approach. Thankfully, these features could be toggled on and off when playing exhibition matches against friends, but anyone trying to unlock all the game's content by going through the tournament modes will be forced to deal with them whether they like it or not. This would lead Mario Power Tennis to be rated over 10 points lower on average by critics, while also seeing a dip in sales and fan reception compared to Mario Tennis 64. The problem was not in concept, but execution, and had the power shot system been reworked to cut down on how frequently they could have been used, or how long each power shot animation lasted, there's a good chance that they'd be universally remembered in a positive light for how clever and charming they are. That said, power shots are still fun in the right circumstances, and in the Gimmick Masters tournaments they are a welcome addition that helps define Mario Power Tennis's identity. By leaning all the way into its source material, Power Tennis is the sports game that feels the most unabashedly Mario to date. The Gimmick Masters tournaments I just mentioned are the best example of this, as they utilize courts based on various Mushroom Kingdom locations to allow the gameplay to get even more wacky and extreme. You'll see things like claptraps biting people's ankles to slow them down, piranha plants covering the court with goop to hinder movement, and courts that shift and change dramatically throughout the match. They give the gameplay a level of unpredictability similar to a Mario Party or Mario Kart title, which adds a whole new element to the back and forth action as each stage comes with its own unique strategy. Power shots feel right at home here, and it makes the Gimmick Masters a great alternative to a regular round of tennis. What is worth emphasizing is that Mario Power Tennis introduces all these new ideas without completely removing the ability to play the way you're used to playing. The building blocks that Mario Tennis 64 laid down are still visible despite a new engine, and every new idea or concept that Mario Power Tennis attempts is laid upon that foundation in a way that naturally evolves it. This is the biggest difference between a title like Mario Power Tennis and the Nintendo Switch Mario Sports titles, which have no reservations about completely revamping mechanics that fans have become accustomed to over the years. Mario Golf Super Rush, for example, never gives you the option to play with the old 3-click system, instead favoring new mechanics that don't feel nearly as good or rewarding to use. This is disappointing mainly because Mario Golf Super Rush doesn't provide enough quality content outside its main modes to compensate for any frustrations you might have with the core gameplay. Golf Adventure is a shallow joke of a mode that lets you down more often than not, and beyond that you are only provided with Battle Golf and Target Golf to mix things up beyond the traditional and Speed Golf modes. This does not feel like enough content when you consider how many options were available to the player in previous Mario Sports titles, and it feels even worse if you're dissatisfied with the new mechanics. The lack of variety is noticeable and makes the game feel stale much faster than a game like Mario Power Tennis, which offers many different ways to play. In fact, when I think of side content in a Mario Sports game, Power Tennis is one of the first to come to mind thanks to its abundance of special games and additional modes. Mecha Bowser Mayhem is literally a boss fight in a Mario Tennis game, Chain Chomp Challenge is a fast-paced competitive gauntlet to see who can score the most points, and Balloon Panic is a puzzle-like challenge that requires precision and quick decision-making to master. While Toadstool Tour may have more options for its side content, none of them embrace their Mario roots like what's offered in Mario Power Tennis. These modes are also unique and full of charm, like Artist on the Court, which sees you painting wall murals of different Mario characters, and they add immensely to Mario Power Tennis's allure. Even when trying new things, Mario Power Tennis never failed to remember to express itself, which is why coming back to this game is like being transported back in time to when the GameCube was the newest Nintendo console. Playing tennis at Luigi's Mansion or in the middle of Delfino Plaza give Power Tennis that clear identity that I've placed so much emphasis on and really shows the flaws of modern Mario Sports titles. In another 2 decades, I'm not sure that playing Mario Golf Super Rush is going to transport me back to a point in history because nothing truly defines that game outside of its questionable gimmick. Imagine if that title had strived to incorporate Cappy or any of the gimmicks from Super Mario Odyssey into its gameplay, aside from a single course in New Donk City that didn't release with the game initially. Perhaps then I would have been more optimistic about its lasting legacy, but instead I imagine I'll just remember it for being the game that took almost half a year to get the updates it needed to justify its $60 price tag. This is why, in hindsight, it seems kind of amazing that Nintendo were consistently releasing quality titles that were not just finished, but full of polish too. We've already discussed 7 incredibly solid titles released over a 6-year span, and not one was criticized for a lack of content or character, and that would continue into 2005, which was the final and most prolific year of the golden age of Mario Sports. Namco, Camelot, and Next Level Games went all out and released not 1, not 2, but 3 separate Mario Sports titles in a single calendar year, 2 of which introduced brand new sports franchises to the series. Mario Superstar Baseball released first in the summer of 2005, and would be joined later that autumn by both Super Mario Strikers and Mario Tennis Power Tour, which came out on the exact same day in North America and Europe. All 3 continued the trend of excellence set up by previous Mario Sports titles, and deserve praise for expanding the franchise even further. Mario Superstar Baseball was a phenomenal first take on a Mario baseball game that still holds up to this day thanks to its mechanical depth, single-player mode, and fantastic side content. With over 30 unique characters to play as, the roster for this game absolutely dwarfed every Mario Sports title released before it, as the number actually shoots above 50 when accounting for variants. Over 10 of these characters make their playable debut in a Mario game, including enemies such as Monty Mole, Dry Bones, Magic Koopa, Goomba, and Hammer Bro, as well as good guys like Toadsworth, Pianta and Noki, and Dixie Kong, who also makes her overall Mario series debut here. This is perfect for assembling a full team of 9 because there are plenty of options to choose from, and there are many different team makeups that can work due to Mario Superstar Baseball's most notable feature, the chemistry system. If you aren't familiar with chemistry, it is a mechanic that affects how compatible two players will be when interacting with one another. For example, if Mario and Luigi are on the same team, they will naturally have good chemistry together, which allows them to throw the ball faster to one another and get stronger hits while the other is on base. Conversely, if you take two characters that have bad chemistry and place them on the same team, like Bowser and Toad, they will create errors more frequently and throw the ball to each other much more slowly than normal. This creates an interesting dynamic in crafting the right team because it gives actual weight to the batting order you select and the positions each player plays. Chemistry is by far my favorite gimmick in a Mario sports title because of the way it uses pre-established Mario lore to complement the game of baseball. Nothing feels quite as good as tagging a player out when you know the only reason the ball made it in time was because the good chemistry between fielders sped the throw up. It feels great to be rewarded in situations like those because you don't feel lucky, you feel smart for knowing to put Luigi at third and Mario at first. Being able to utilize good chemistry as often as possible will give you a big advantage over an opponent who isn't doing the same, and at the same time it is a great way to reinforce the relationships these characters have. It makes them feel unique and gives you a reason to pick them aside from their stats, as even if Toadette is the fastest character, it might make more sense to pick Monty Mole as a speed option just for the sake of chemistry and team construction. The amount of thought that goes into the setup of Mario Superstar Baseball may be a turnoff to those that just want to get into the action, but for others it provides a type of fun that can't be experienced in other Mario sports games. Especially when factoring in star skills, there is a strategy element to the game that's unique to only it, and it says a lot about how fun a game is when you can get so much engagement out of it before the match even begins. There's so much to consider, from what special abilities you'd like to play with, to which characters would complement those team captains, to how you'll sabotage the team your opponent is building, that drafting rosters before the game can sometimes be as fun as nailing hits in a game can. With another experienced player, it can feel cutthroat, which is why it is great if you're able to start the game feeling like you have an advantage, because it feels like you won the pre-game struggle. Drafting is also noteworthy because it highlights the remarkable level of detail found throughout Mario Superstar Baseball. Aside from affecting the total team chemistry a squad has, team composition actually dictates the name of the team as well. It's why sometimes when you select Yoshi as a captain, you'll be known as the Yoshi Eggs, but then other times known as the Yoshi Islanders or the Yoshi Speedstars. Each team captain actually has 4 different team names they could end up as, and it really shows the level of thought that went into fleshing out the chemistry system. Mario Superstar Baseball also set itself apart from other console Mario sports titles by including a single-player story mode that others did not have. While the story is extremely bare bones with just a few lines of dialogue, I appreciate that there was a little more effort put into the single-player content this time around, as they included a little overworld you can run around on to challenge the various team captains and to participate in minigames. Each character on your roster comes with their own special missions to complete along the way that allow you to eventually unlock their superstar version for exhibition play, which makes playing by yourself a little more worthwhile. In addition to unlocking the special hits and pitches for each team captain, this is the main incentive to play challenge mode, and I really enjoy having something to play for, unlike many of the modern Mario sports games. Despite over half a dozen titles that came before it, Mario Superstar Baseball managed to continue to push the Mario sports franchise in the right direction. It released with the largest roster to that point, introduced a new innovative gimmick in the chemistry system, retained the spirit of Mario with details like every character having their own custom bat, and even managed to pull off special moves in a more balanced and controlled way than Mario Power Tennis. While true that the characters' personalities aren't as much of a focus as they were in Toadstool Tour or Power Tennis, they still shine through in animations like when they get beamed by the ball, and any pullback is made up by the way Superstar Baseball manages to incorporate Mario theming into all facets of the game. Much like Toadstool Tour before it, Superstar Baseball is the total package, and only a few drawbacks, like the inability to turn gimmicks off on all the stadiums, prevent me from calling it the best Mario sports game of all time. The fact that this game has only received one sequel in 20 years is very disappointing and frankly somewhat baffling considering its quality. It was and is a shining example of what happens when love, care, and attention is put into a Mario Sports game, and it's a shame that it was one of the last few in the franchise to receive the effort it deserved. Luckily, Super Mario Strikers and Mario Power Tennis were right around the corner, though admittedly they would not reach quite the same heights that Superstar Baseball or Toadstool Tour did. Still, on pure raw energy and excitement alone, Super Mario Strikers may have a case as the best Mario Sports title. Its fast-paced, chaotic gameplay is addictingly intense and creates an extremely competitive environment that is reinforced by the aggressive attitude each Mario character now comes with. The overall tone of the game is grittier, nastier, and more violent than anything Nintendo had ever associated Mario with, and Strikers immediately carved out a unique space in the Mario franchise for itself. More so than any previous Mario Sports game, this title had a clear attitude that was communicated not just through its audio and visual presentation, but its gameplay as well. You can feel it almost as soon as a match begins because unlike every previous Mario Sports game, there is no downtime to breathe in Strikers. Your opponent is on you as soon as you touch the ball, and that threat and sense of urgency only goes away once the match is over. The anger and determination these characters display on the select screen is felt in a very tangible way as they smash you into an electrified fence or pound you into the ground with items, leaving no room to question what Super Mario Strikers' identity is. Bodies will be strewn all over the field, Bowser will arrive once or twice to raise hell, and the goalies will be knocked unconscious several times, and that's just how Strikers likes it. Fortunately for Strikers, having insanely fun gameplay and an easily distinguishable personality are, in my eyes, the two most important factors needed for a great Mario Sports game because it is quite lacking in other departments. Unlike Mario Superstar Baseball, which released earlier in the same year, Super Mario Strikers doesn't come with a single-player story, or minigames to break up the main gameplay, or even optional objectives to complete in-match for unlockable content. It also released with the smallest roster of playable characters in a Mario Sports title up to that point, as well as the fewest amounts of modes and arenas to choose from. It only introduced one new character which has since never been seen again, and even its OST pales in comparison to some of the other games we've discussed in this video thus far. In a lot of ways, Super Mario Strikers, for as good as it is, suffers from some of the same problems that modern Mario Sports titles do, namely their lack of content. This was and still is surprising considering how each and every Mario Sports game that released before it, and Mario Tennis Power Tour which released with it, all came packaged with tons of extra modes and things to do. Its sequel, which would come out a few years later on the Wii, feels like a realized version of what Strikers was trying to be and improved on it by adding new stadiums, new playable characters, and by introducing new mechanics to deepen the gameplay as well. As such, Super Mario Strikers can seem stripped down and basic compared to its contemporaries and sequel, playing more like an arcade experience than a full-fledged Mario Sports game. That's why I feel like this is the point where the golden age of Mario Sports truly comes to an end. While Mario Tennis Power Tour offers a tremendous mobile tennis experience, it feels remarkably similar to Mario Golf Advance Tour that came before it. It mainly tries to emulate the feel of Mario Power Tennis as Advance Tour did with Toadstool Tour, while incorporating RPG mechanics into a story centered around human characters not from the Mushroom Kingdom. It does a great job at all these things and was definitely the best tennis game on the GBA, but doesn't feel as unique or interesting after we've seen 3 other handheld Mario Sports games do the same thing. It deserves credit for its quality and amount of content, but feels like it needed to carve its own path, the inverse of Strikers, which succeeded in doing something new, but failed to add variety to what it did offer. To be clear, I think Super Mario Strikers and Mario Tennis Power Tour are good games, and believe it or not, Super Mario Strikers is actually my all-time favorite Mario Sports game, but the cracks in the franchise were beginning to show. From this point forward, it felt like every Mario Sports game that released over the next 18 years had some sort of issue plaguing it that prevented it from really shining in the way that the games of the N64 and GameCube eras did. The one exception to that might be Super Mario Strikers Charged, which as I mentioned earlier did improve on its predecessor in many ways, but even then some didn't like being forced into using the Wiimote and felt things got a little too complicated to be able to pick up and play with less experienced players. And by the time Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games was released later that year in 2007, the writing was on the wall as to where the direction of Mario Sports was headed. In the time since this self-proclaimed golden age of Mario Sports ended, we've seen well over a dozen Mario Sports titles released, yet none of them have made any sort of impact. Well, maybe Mario Tennis Ultra Smash made a significant impact, but in the opposite way that you would hope because that game was an abomination. It showed how Camelot now viewed its various sports titles as cash grabs that didn't need to feature the same level of detail and passion that mainline Mario games would receive. And truthfully, it doesn't feel like that outlook has really changed, because even if the games on the Switch eventually update to feature a full game's worth of content, it still doesn't excuse the fact that these games release at full price in a bare-bones state with no real promise for what they will become. Ultra Smash may have forced them to put a little more effort into their releases compared to what they were trying to get away with, but Camelot still managed to find a way to do the bare minimum with their Mario sports titles. It's sad that I know that I'd be more excited for a remaster or re-release of Mario Superstar Baseball instead of a brand new entry to the series, because I no longer have faith in Nintendo to publish high-quality Mario sports games. To know and have lived through a period of time where every Mario sports game not only delivered, but exceeded expectations feels almost like a fever dream at times because of how bad things have gotten. Something changed when gaming shifted into the 7th generation, and these franchises, which were once staples of any multiplayer gaming session I was a part of, seemingly disappeared overnight. Instead of debuting new sports, innovating pre-existing ones, and capitalizing on the rapidly growing popularity of online gaming, Nintendo instead canned these franchises for years, allowing them to lose the momentum they had built up all through the early to mid-2000s. And when they returned, they did so not with a bang, but with a nasty diarrhea shit. After years of failed sports compilations and bland minigame collections in the form of the Mario and Sonic series, the Mario Sports franchise has quite a long road ahead of it if it hopes to rehabilitate its image. Modern Mario Sports suffer from a lack of attention to detail, a lack of content, and a lack of a discernible personality, and if these franchises ever want to redeem themselves, a big change needs to happen soon. While not every game is bad, it's telling to me that my friends and I will gladly play Mario Kart World or Super Mario Party Jamboree, but still bust out the GameCube when we're in the mood to play any of the various Mario sports. To reach the heights it once did during its golden age, Mario Sports need to not only recognize and implement the elements that made titles like Mario Golf Toadstool Tour a classic, but they need to do it on a regular, consistent basis as well. Each of these individual series have been damaged over the years by subpar releases that fail to capture the spirit and essence of what made Mario sports games so appealing in the first place, and one solid release won't undo the years of mediocrity that came before it. As we move further away from the golden age of Mario sports, I appreciate more and more how special that period of time was. It wasn't just that the games were excellent, it was also the fact that they were releasing new ones all the time. From 1999 to 2005, 10 different Mario sports titles came out, and every single one delivered a fresh, worthwhile experience that still holds up to this day. These games not only celebrated the Mario franchise, they added to it in a meaningful way by expanding the Mario universe with new characters, establishing lore and personality traits for the denizens of the Mushroom Kingdom, and creating pairings and tropes that we still see over 20 plus years later. Along with Mario Party and Mario Kart, these titles were instrumental in showing Mario games could be fun whether you were jumping on Koopas, winning tight races, or playing a leisurely 18 holes in a round of golf. With their distinct styles, unique gimmicks, and addictive gameplay, each Mario sports title released in this time period proudly showcased its personality to create a timeless, memorable experience that's as fun to go back and play today as it was when they originally released. For people like me who grew up with these games, it's hard to forget the memories they created for my friends and I, and it's hard to not want to see them return to the glory days they once had. And if you had the privilege of playing these games over the years, I imagine you probably feel the same way too. Mario sports can be so much more than what they are now, and I feel bad for those who unfortunately never had a chance to play these series at their apex, because they used to be creative, polished games that were as fun as any multiplayer experience out there. And maybe one day in the future they will be again, who knows, but at least we'll always have the games from the golden age of Mario sports. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you for taking this trip back in time with me. Mario sports are some of my favorite games, and I hope you enjoyed this look at what I consider to be the best period in their history. Of course, I'd love to hear what you think about Mario sports, so let me know down in the comments section. When do you think was the golden age of Mario sports? Do modern Mario sports titles really suck? And are there any other series that you'd like for me to explore the golden age of? Be sure to let me know your thoughts, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe with notifications turned on to be alerted whenever I release new content. Thanks for watching.